Hey, this is Ryan at Clovis Star Media. It's the 10th, I'm sorry, it's still the 9th of November 2017. And we're here in Europe again, traveling the UK and Ireland and possibly some other places in the near future. And I just wanted to talk about the things that I have seen and heard from people while we've been traveling and while I've been discussing these things with friends in the United States online. And the military comes up. It's a sore subject all over the world. From um, non-Americans' point of view, and even some Americans too. That we are all over the world, and I don't believe there's a real reason for it. Where we have 700 plus military bases in foreign countries. Um, I don't know how many the exact number is, but to have 700 plus military bases and like, for example, in Obama's presidency, he invaded, or he was at least bombing 7 countries, and five of them without a declaration of war. And that's kind of what people see is that we don't mind our own business. We're over there messing with people. We're gunning down innocent civilians, like in Iraq. Some estimates say there's over 500,000 innocent civilians killed in the Iraq battle. We went over there because of 9/11, but none of the people from these, you know, hijackings were from Iraq. Most of them were from Saudi Arabia, and I think there was a few from Yemen, but I don't think there was any from Iraq. And so here we are in Iraq, Afghanistan, and we're blowing shit up and killing people and whatever. That's what people see. I've watched something recently about Obama from I don't know if they call him an MP, anyway, somebody in Parliament here in Ireland. Uh, Clary was her name. I can't remember her first name. Anyway, she went off on how Obama was a war criminal and blah blah blah, and why are we sucking up to him and stuff. So I mean, when I get into conversations about people who have served in the military, and one came up recently because I mentioned that I didn't like football, that it just pro football sucks. It's a bunch of grown men playing a game, and getting paid millions of dollars for it, and then complaining about it, complaining that they're not getting enough. Like, who plays a game and gets paid for it at all? First of all, and then secondly, um, when you're getting paid millions of dollars for anything, and you're going to complain about that, and then thirdly, what benefit of all, in any way, shape, or form, does football contribute to society? We spend like $24.6 billion a year, Americans do, on pro sports. And I really don't see much benefit. I mean, you'd be better off supporting a local football team like your high school football team or your junior high football team. People that need, money for school, and, the school needs money for activities and for books or for whatever. Go support that. Go spend billions of dollars on your local football teams and your local whatever high school sports teams, rather than spending billions of dollars on whiny old greasy men, in their 40s and 50s that are complaining that they're not making enough money after pulling a 10 billion or $10 million income, whatever the hell it is, each. Some of them even more. It just doesn't make sense to me. So I get into it, like I mentioned, that I didn't agree with that, right? And I think it's stupid. I think football's lame. It's a waste of time, waste of money, and it's unproductive for society. Someone's like, well, I don't care. My husband fought in the military. He deserves to relax and watch football. I'm like, man, more power to him. Just because I don't care about football, and just because I don't think that military service makes me respect you bar none, doesn't mean you can't enjoy your life. Don't worry about what I think. Do what you got to do, and I'll do what I got to do, and I'll have my opinions on my own Facebook, on my personal private Facebook wall, and you can either choose to ignore it or interact with me. But if you're going to interact with me, you're going to hear about how I think the military, joining the military service, does not qualify you bar none for end all be all respect for everything you do. You don't have to justify your watching football by saying that you joined a brutal career that, usually ends up in the death of foreigners on their own land, to me to say that that's why you can watch football without any, guilt. I don't have guilt, don't have any explain. It doesn't matter. It's football. It's just a game. If that's what you want to choose to spend your time on, that's fine. I'm sure there's things I waste my time on, like when I'm waiting for something to happen, like I'm doing things right now for advertising on my Facebook blogs or my website blogs and my businesses online. And there's some downtime, so I'll sit and play a video game. That's killing time, and it's not being very productive. So hey, everybody does their own thing. But when it comes, if you want to argue with me about how because of military service you are justified in everything you do, no, I'm not going to agree with that. I'm sorry. I personally have reservations on military service as is. Now, I was fortunate when I was a kid in 19. I was a poor, not very, well off kid from not very well off family. My parents were at the time living in a trailer park, which I had done off and on in my life. And so I didn't have any silver spoon in my ass. I didn't have any, benefits or austerity or whatever. I had to fight for what I got in life. I worked for the irrigation company at age 14 and 15, and day labor after that, 15, 16, 17, 18. I moved out of home at an early age. I was 12, moved in with my grandma. And then, I think this is the reason why I've cared about veterans that are homeless, is because after that, after my grandma and I, weren't getting along. We were getting along, but she was tired of, me not going to school or obeying the rules or whatever. I was a pain in the ass. So I moved out with my cousin and her boyfriend. And then I was homeless after that. That lasted a short time, and then I was homeless. All this by choice. I could have went home and sucked up and kissed everybody's ass and had a normal little, uh, passive life where I didn't have any ideals or any opinions. I could have just sucked it up, and I didn't. And that was my choice. I was homeless by choice. My dad was Mormon. He was ex-military. And my mom was on some medications, and it was just a hostile situation for me, and I didn't want to be there. So I was homeless. Not blaming anybody. It was a choice I made, and I didn't have it as bad off as most. There was a lot of people that I met on the streets who had it way worse than me at home. I had a pretty decent life at home. It's just I had ideals and struggles, and I decided to move on and do my own thing. And I'm happy for it. No complaints. But on the streets, I met homeless veterans and homeless other people with mental illness. And I've always had a heart for people who are homeless or, in some way challenged, especially military people. And I started doing the Tough Mudder back in 2013. I was, I paid my dues for the event in Tahoe, and I was recruiting online. I was telling people. And one thing that I said was, hey, I respect these people who come home from the military and want services from the government that they should be entitled to after fighting for their country, right? And then the government turns their back on them. So if the government's going to turn their back on them, I'll step up and I'll try to do my deeds, my good deeds for them, and raise money for the Wounded Warriors Project. But I said, and this is the point that, I go back to, and you can see this video on my Ex-Cannabis COM channel here on YouTube. Probably put a link in the description. Is that I think marijuana saved my life because I tried to get recruited. I tried to enlist in the military. And I had the Marines, Air Force, and Army all wanting to recruit me. I spoke a little bit with the Navy guy, and I was not interested. I wanted to fly. I wanted to be in the Air Force. But after they checked my record, my police record, they found 2 arrests, which was a result of 4 pot tickets, one for paraphernalia, one for possession of marijuana on each arrest, so 4 tickets. And they said, if you only had 1, we could expunge it, but you got 4, we can't do anything with that, so sorry. And they turned me down. And ever since then, I've said pot saved my life, because I could have came home mentally ill, PTSD, trauma, or maimed, whatever, limbs amputated, whatever, or dead, or, experiencing loss of other people in my squad, or God only knows, they go through hell out there. And I think a lot of it is in vain. I think a lot of it is nonsense. And I just thank God that I didn't get recruited. I'm glad that they turned me down. So, take that as an offense, or take that as, my theory on the military and other issues, but it's just my opinion. I post these things on my own private channels and my own private social media, and you're welcome to like it or hate it or turn the goddamn thing off for all I care. But kids that are looking to enlist in the military, yeah, it's an easy way out, and there's studies that show that most of the people that are recruited in the military are poor people. They come from poverty. And I think it's like 2/3 of people who enlist come from low-income families and have no education. Um, but even though it's a struggle, avoid military service when that's an easier way out, we live in America, Americans have it pretty good. There's always an opportunity. So even if it's not military, you're going to find a way. You work hard, you do those shitty little jobs. Like I said, I worked at an irrigation company when I was 14 and 15 and day labor and stuff. But you get good references, you go to the next level up and you continue to rise up that ladder, and someday you'll have a good job. You don't have to go to the military to find all that. Now, military is an easy way out, but maybe the easy way out isn't the best way. Maybe there's a better way to get ahead in life. That's my advice to teenagers or anybody looking for a military career. Take it or leave it.